Hey, on we go.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Coast Community News and Central Coast Newspapers Video News. I'm Jackie Pearson and today I'm joined by Mr. Gary Blaschke. Gary is representing the Northern Lakes Area Disability Tourism Precinct, quite a mouthful. Gary is a long-term campaigner for the rights of the disabled and also for the environment. Welcome.
Thank you.
So you've called for an audit of the Central Coast's health and environment. Can you give us an overview of why you've done that, why you're calling on this big study?
Well, originally I was driving past the ash dams at Doyleson. I saw that there were a heap of trees dying. I contacted the EPA to find out the reasons why they were dying. We had consultation in Newcastle. I got written replies telling me that it was just pooling of water that was killing the trees. They then went and planted eucalypts in replacement of the dying trees, which obviously don't handle water around their feet. And I started seeing things that were wrong. I started looking into the region, getting involved with asking disabled people to come to the region and enjoy the region. I just didn't want to have these toxic looking materials or areas in vision of where these people want to come and have a holiday.
Now, let's just talk about the ash dams, because most people who drive through Doyleson don't even know they're there. I didn't know until you pointed them out to me. So they're on the other side of the road to the Doyleson RSL.
That's right.
And they're big, aren't they? And what are they?
Well, they're the byproduct left over from burning coal for power stations. Some of it is stored in dams. Now, they were built in the 60s. They're unlined. Unlined. And there's equivalent to 450 Olympic swimming pools there.
And what sort of chemical composition does coal ash have?
There's a heap of different heavy metals. There's issues happening in South Australia at the moment where a ash dam has dried out because they put a layer of water on top of it to suppress it. And the ash dam's dried out because of the location where it is.
So
and
does the ash then
the ash is
fly off
blowing
on the
all over
wind?
the township. Yeah.
Okay. So we've got the ash dams.
Yes.
Now you've also done some mapping of cancer data and found what looks like cancer clusters near to our legacy power stations. Do you want to talk about that a bit?
Yeah, well, that was the findings of Torrens University from South Australia. They did a 4-year study on the Central Coast looking at cancer clusters. Now, I don't know the reason why they were doing that. Obviously, it was showing up in the databases for cancers. They did it for 9 different cancers, and it just so happened when I looked at the suburbs where these cancers were appearing, I started to collate the ones that appeared on every single cancer. And it turned out that Wyong North, Wyong East, Charmhaven and Gorican were the ones that repeatedly came up with all the different cancers.
And they are the areas that would be receiving wind, like the wind direction in the summer months when people are more likely to be outdoors and exposed, would be coming from the direction where the power stations are located?
Yeah, well, 23% of our winds are northeast or northerlies in the summertime when we're outside recreating.
Yep.
And they just happen to be south of the actual sites that we're talking about. Now, I'm sure that if you did a study heading north, in the winter time, you'd see that the southerlies blow up that way, and you'd probably find suburbs north of Lake Macquarie having the same problems.
And then icing on the cake, we get a very friendly message from the New South Wales EPA to say that they've found PFAS within the side of the Munmorah Power Station
And Kalongra.
and Kalungra. It's gone a bit quiet since the EPA briefed our Parliamentary Secretary and Yasmin Catley. They wanted to talk about it before their briefing with the EPA. They've gone a bit quiet since. Fortunately, there doesn't seem to be a direct risk pathway like there has been at Williamtown, where people have been drinking groundwater and watering their vegetables with it. But just give us an idea of how concerning it is, not just for the actual site, but the surrounding lake system that PFAS have been detected.
Well, firstly, we don't know to what extent the PFAS is there. Obviously, it's two basically retired power stations that had training for firefighting, and it's a retardant in the firefighting equipment that causes the problems.
Yeah.
They are currently carrying out studies which I believe are too slow. They're doing fish testing in Lake Munmorah and Budgie Lake to find out if the fish have been affected. I've called for the seagrasses to be tested as well, because I believe that if it gets into the seagrass, it gets into the whole fish and everything else. So, look, to what extent it is, it's enough to put out letters to local people in Buff Point to say don't use your, if you've got a bore, don't use the water from the bores. You know, it's scary because it's the cumulative impacts of all these issues, including air pollution reports, that we really do need to get some sort of health and environmental audits done for the region.
And is there any mechanism for the community to call for a health and environmental audit? Is this something that exists and that a state government can do and would be willing to do, or what do we have to do to make it happen?
Well, look, you know, I had a meeting with Yasmin Catley a couple of weeks ago, raised the issues. She didn't seem to be too concerned about it, and I got in trouble from her for saying that on radio. But look, you know, it is really up to our state member to stand up and be counted, and especially David Harris as well, because it's his electorate area that is getting highly impacted upon. That's right, and Scott McDonald. And you know, the region needs to have something done. I think it was 1997 that the Community Environment Network did a couple of audits on the lakes. We haven't had anything since then. Environmental signs that we used to get before the power station, heaps of non-stinging jellyfish, which is an indication that we have a healthy lake. Now, those non-stinging jellyfish have never returned, even though they've closed the power station down. We need to find out why they haven't returned. Do they still exist? Do they want to get back up into the lake? Well, obviously they were breeding, because it is a breeding area, Lake Munmorah.
Do you think it's a matter of if we don't do the audit and we don't really uncover and assess these problems, then we can market ourselves as a pristine area and get the tourism dollar and everything's honky-dory? Look,
I think we do sweep things under the carpet as long as it looks nice. It must be okay, but you know, the problems with the lakes, we've known about the lakes for a long time. We hear people complaining about the seagrasses getting washed up onto shore and smelling, breaking down, which is an organic happening.
Process,
But the whole thing is that we don't accept what the problem is, and it's stormwater runoffs just around the edge of Lake Munmorah where the pathway is. There's 32 stormwater drains that lead into the lake.
Wow.
You know, and I've given council the indication that we could build smaller wetlands, even rain gardens to filter the water before it actually gets into the lake. Now, that's only a little bit of fixing the problem up, but it would fix it up dramatically.
Okay, well, Gary Blaschke, I know that you'll keep fighting the good fight, and I think our community is very lucky to have people like you, so thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jackie.
That's a wrap. Good one. Fantastic.